Hi, Rachel and McKinley. I was trying to think of ways I could make it more normal while we were gone, and one of the things I thought of is reading a bedtime story to you, just like I might if I was home. So I was just going to record it, and then you can listen to it every night before you go to bed and know that we're thinking of you. We love you a lot. The story that I picked was Black Beauty, and I picked it kind of because Dad brought home Uncle Clayton's horses, and we're going to be learning how to take care of them, and also because the author that came to visit our school, Nancy Turner Stevenson, she said that she read this book when she was a little girl, and it was what made her want to be a writer. So I've never read it before, so it'll be the first time for all of us. And before I start the book, I was going to read you a little bit from this version because it had some information about the author that I didn't know of before either. So the author's name is Anna Sewell. And it says, Anna Sewell was born in Yarmouth, England in 1820. It took her nearly 7 years to write Black Beauty, her only book. The author learned to know and love horses when she was a young girl. Driving her father to and from the train station in a pony cart, she was able to observe both people and their horses. After a serious fall in which she was badly hurt, she could no longer ride. Despite her pain, Anna Sewell was determined to complete her novel. She dictated much of the book to her mother, so that means she would say it out loud and her mom would write it down. So her mother wrote it all down when Anna was too weak to hold a pencil. Black Beauty was published in 1877. Anna Sewell died a year later. The book was very popular from the start. It called people's attention to their often cruel and thoughtless treatment of animals and did much to improve the conditions for all animals. So I thought that was super interesting. Kind of taught people how to take better care of their horses while telling a story. Something else I didn't know is that it's told from the point of view of the horse, so that was interesting too. This book has some pictures in it, so I'll try to show you. I like the end papers, they're really pretty. Okay, and on the title page it has our first picture, and they call it a plate, like they used to make prints from these plates. So this first plate says, "She chose me for her horse." Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. Part 1, Chapter 1, My Early Home. The first place that I can well remember was a large, pleasant meadow with a pond of clear water in it. Some shady trees leaned over it, and rushes and water lilies grew at the deep end. Over the hedge on one side we looked into a plowed field, and on the other we looked over a gate at our master's house, which stood by the roadside. At the top of the meadow was a plantation of fir trees, and at the bottom a running brook overhung by a steep bank. Whilst I was young, I lived upon my mother's milk, as I could not eat grass. In the daytime I ran by her side, and at night I lay down close by her. When it was hot, we used to stand by the pond in the shade of the trees, and when it was cold, we had a warm shed near the plantation. As soon as I was old enough to eat grass, my mother used to go out to work in the daytime and come back in the evening. There were 6 young colts in the meadow besides me. They were older than I was. Some were nearly as large as the grown-up horses. I used to run with them and had great fun. We used to gallop all together round and around the field as hard as we could go. Sometimes we had rather rough play, for they would frequently bite and kick as well as gallop. One day, when there was a good deal of kicking, my mother whinnied to me to come to her, and then she said, "I wish you to pay attention to what I'm going to say to you. The colts who live here are very good colts, but they are cart horse colts, and of course they have not learned their manners. You have been well bred and well born. Your father has a great name in these parts, and your grandfather won the cup 2 years at the Newmarket races. Your grandmother had the sweetest temper of any horse I ever knew, and I think you have never seen me kick or bite. I hope you will grow up gentle and good, and never learn bad ways. Do your work with a good will. Lift your feet up well when you trot, and never bite or kick, even in play." I have never forgotten my mother's advice. I knew she was a wise old horse, and our master thought a great deal of her. Her name was Duchess, but he often called her Pet. And this is the second painting. It says plate number 2, My Mother and I. Our master was a good, kind man. He gave us food, good lodging, and kind words. He spoke as kindly to us as he did to his little children. We were all fond of him, and my mother loved him very much. When she saw him at the gate, she would neigh with joy and trot up to him. He would pat and stroke her and say, "Well, old pet, and how is your little darky?" I was a dull black, so he called me Darky. Then he would give me a piece of bread, which was very good, and sometimes he brought a carrot for my mother. All the horses would come to him, but I think we were his favorites. My mother always took him to the town on a market day in a light gig. There was a ploughboy, Dick, who sometimes came into our field to pluck blackberries from the hedge. When he had eaten all he wanted, he would have what he called fun with the colts, throwing stones and sticks at them to make them gallop. We did not much mind him, for we could gallop off, but sometimes a stone would hit and hurt us. One day he was at this game and did not know that the master was in the next field, but he was there, watching what was going on. Over the hedge he jumped in a snap, and catching Dick by the arm gave him such a box on the ear as made him roar with pain and surprise. As soon as we saw the master, we trotted up nearer to see what went on. "Bad boy," he said, "bad boy chasing the colts. This is not the first time nor the second, but it shall be the last. There, take your money and go home. I shall not want you on my farm again." So we never saw Dick any more. Old Daniel, the man who looked after the horses, was just as gentle as our master, so we were well off. Chapter 2, The Hunt, and it has a little drawing at the beginning of each chapter. Before I was 2 years old, a circumstance happened which I have never forgotten. It was early in the spring, but there had been a little frost in the night, and a light mist still hung over the woods and the meadows. I and the other colts were feeding at the lower part of the field when we heard quite in the distance what sounded like the cry of dogs. The oldest of the colts raised his head, pricked his ears, and said, "There are the hounds," and immediately cantered off, followed by the rest of us to the upper part of the field, where we could look over the hedge and see several fields beyond. My mother and an old riding horse of our master's were also standing near and seemed to know all about it. "They have found a hare," said my mother, "and if they come this way, we shall see the hunt." And soon the dogs were all tearing down the field of a young wheat next to ours. I never heard such a noise as they made. They did not bark, nor howl, nor whine, but kept on, yo, oh, yo, oh, oh, yo, yo, oh, oh. That's what it says. I don't know if that's supposed to be a dog sound. Maybe that. At the top of their voices. After them came a number of men on horseback, some of them in green coats, all galloping as fast as they could. The old horse snorted and looked eagerly after them, and we young colts wanted to be galloping with them, but they were soon away into the fields lower down. Here it seemed as if they had come to a stand. The dogs left off barking and ran about every way with their noses to the ground. "They have lost the scent," said the old horse. "Perhaps the hare will get off." "What hare?" I said. "Oh, I don't know what hare. Likely enough it may be one of our own hares out of the plantation. Any hare they can find will do for the dogs and the men to run after." And before long the dogs began their yoo-yoo-woo-woo-woo again, and back they came all together, at full speed, making straight for our meadow, at the part where the high bank and the hedge overhang the brook. "Now we shall see the hare," said my mother, and just then a hare, wild with fright, rushed by and made for the plantation. On came the dogs. They burst over the bank, leapt the stream, and came dashing across the field, followed by the huntsmen. 6 or 8 men leaped their horses clean over, close upon the dogs. The hare tried to get through the fence, but it was too thick, so she turned sharp round to make for the road, but it was too late. The dogs were upon her with their wild cries. We heard one shriek, and that was the end of her. One of the huntsmen rode up and whipped off the dogs, who could soon have torn her to pieces. He held her up by the leg, torn and bleeding, and all the gentlemen seemed well pleased. As for me, I was so astonished that I did not at first see what was going on by the brook. But when I did look, there was a sad sight. 2 fine horses were down. One was struggling in the stream, and the other was groaning on the grass. One of the riders was getting out of the water covered with mud, and the other lay quite still. "His neck is broken," said my mother. "And serves him right, too," said one of the colts. I thought the same, but my mother did not join with us. "Well, no," she said, "you must not say that. But though I am an old horse and have seen and heard a great deal, I never yet could make out why men are so fond of this sport. They often hurt themselves, they often spoil good horses and tear up the fields, and all for a hare or a fox or a stag, that they could get more easily some other way. But We are only horses, and don't know." Whilst my mother was saying this, we stood and looked on. Many of the riders had gone to the young man, but my master, who had been watching what was going on, was the first to raise him. His head fell back, and his arms hung down, and everyone looked very serious. There was no noise now. Even the dogs were quiet, and seemed to know that something was wrong. They carried him to our master's house. I heard afterwards that it was young George Gordon, the squire's only son, a fine, tall young man, and the pride of his family. They were now riding off in all directions, to the doctor's, to the farrier's, and no doubt to Squire Gordon's, to let him know about his son. When Mr. Bond the farrier came to look at the black horse that lay groaning on the grass, and felt him all over, he shook his head. One of his legs was broken. Then someone ran to our master's house and came back with a gun. Presently there was a loud bang and a dreadful shriek, and then all was still, and the black horse moved no more. This is a sad story. So this is plate number 3. It says, "A bad place to leap." My mother seemed much troubled. She said she had known that horse for years, and that his name was Rob Roy. He was a good build horse, and there was no vice in him. Vices like negative traits. She never would go to that part of the field afterwards. Not many days after, we heard the church bell tolling for a long time, and looking over the gate we saw a long, strange black coach that was covered with black cloth and drawn by black horses. After that came another, and another, and another. All were black, while the bell kept tolling, tolling. They were carrying young Gordon to the churchyard to bury him. He would never ride again. What they did with Rob Roy I never knew, but 'twas all for one little hare. I don't know if you could see that when you looked at the painting. There's the picture of the hare. This is kind of a sad story. Chapter 3 is called My Breaking In. There's the drawing for chapter 3. I was now beginning to grow handsome. My coat had grown fine and soft and was bright black. I had one white foot and a pretty white star on my forehead. I was thought very handsome. My master would not sell me till I was 4 years old. He said lads ought not to work like men, and colts ought not to work like horses till they were quite grown up. When I was 4 years old, Squire Gordon came to look at me. He examined my eyes, my mouth, and my legs. He felt them all down, and then I had to walk and trot and gallop before him. He seemed to like me, and said, "When he has been well broken in, he will do very well." My master said he would break me in himself, as he should not like me to be frightened or hurt, and he lost no time about it, for the very next day he began. Everyone may not know what breaking in is, therefore I will describe it. It means to teach a horse to wear a saddle and a bridle, and to carry a man on his back, a man, woman, or child, to go just the way they wish, and to go quietly. Besides this, he has to learn how to wear a collar, a crupper, and a breeching. I don't know what those things are yet. And to stand still while they are all put on, and then to have a cart or a chaise fixed behind him, so that he cannot walk or trot without dragging it after him. And he must go fast or slow, just as his driver wishes. He must never start at what he sees, nor speak to other horses, nor bite, nor kick, nor have any will of his own, but always do his master's will, even though he may be tired or hungry. But the worst of all is, when his harness is once on, he may neither jump for joy, nor lie down for weariness. So you see, this breaking in is a great thing. I had, of course, long been used to a halter and a headstall, and to being led about the field and lanes quietly, but now I was to have a bit and a bridle. That's the part that goes in their mouth. My master gave me some oats as usual, and after a good deal of coaxing he got the bit into my mouth and the bridle fixed, but it was a nasty thing. Those who have never had a bit in their mouth cannot think how bad it feels. A great piece of cold hard steel, as thick as a man's finger, to be pushed into one's mouth, between one's teeth and over one's tongue, and with the ends coming out of the corners of your mouth, and held fast there by straps over your head, under your throat, round your nose, and under your chin, so that in no way in the world can you get rid of the nasty hard thing. It is very bad. Yes, very bad. At least, I thought so, but I knew my mother always wore one when she went out, and all the horses did when they were grown up. And so, what with the nice oats and my master's pats and kind words and gentle ways, I got to wear my bit and bridle. Next came the saddle, but that was not half so bad. My master put it on my back very gently, whilst old Daniel held my head. He then made the girths fasten under my body, so that's like the buckle part that goes underneath their belly, patting and talking to me all the time. Then I had a few more oats and then a little leading about, and this he did every day till I began to look for the oats and the saddle. At length, one morning, my master got on my back and rode me around the meadow on the soft grass. It certainly did feel queer, but I must say I felt rather proud to carry my master, and as he continued to ride me a little every day, I soon became accustomed to it. The next unpleasant business was putting on the iron shoes. That, too, was very hard at first. My master went with me to the smith's forge to see that I was not hurt or got any fright. The blacksmith took my feet in his hand one after the other and cut away some of the hoof. It did not pain me, so I stood still on 3 legs till he had done them all. I've heard that it's kind of like cutting fingernails, like when they trim the horse's hoof, that it's like just cutting the extra fingernails off kind of before they put the horseshoe on. But maybe I'm wrong. We'll have to ask Dad. Then he took a piece of iron, the shape of my foot, and clapped it on and drove some nails through the shoe quite into my hoof so that the shoe was firmly on. My feet felt very stiff and heavy, but in time I got used to it. And now, having got so far, my master went on to break me to harness. There were more new things to wear. First, a stiff, heavy collar just on my neck, and a bridle with a great side pieces against my eyes called blinkers, and blinkers indeed they were, for I could not see on either side, but only straight in front of me. I think it's like it blocks so the horses can't get spooked by something on the side or behind them, like it kind of blocks out some of this stuff. Next, there was a small saddle with a nasty stiff strap that went right under my tail. That was the crupper. I hated the crupper. To have my long tail doubled up and poked through that strap was almost as bad as a bit. I never felt more like kicking, but of course I could not kick such a good master, and so in time I got used to everything and could do my work just as well as my mother. I must not forget to mention one part of my training which I have always considered a great advantage. My master sent me for a fortnight to a neighboring farmer's who had a meadow which was skirted on one side by the railway. Here were some sheep and cows, and I was turned in among them. So a fortnight is 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks he was going to this other farmer's house to be with sheep and cows. I shall never forget the first train that ran by. I was feeding quietly near the pales which separated the meadow from the railway when I heard a strange sound at a distance. And before I knew whence it came, with a rush and a clatter and a puffing of smoke, a long black train of something flew by and was gone almost before I could draw my breath. I turned and galloped to the further side of the meadow as fast as I could go, and there I stood snorting with astonishment and fear. In the course of the day, many other trains went by, some more slowly. These drew up at the station close by, and sometimes made an awful shriek and groan before they stopped. I thought it was very dreadful, but the cows just went on eating very quietly, and hardly raised their heads as the black, frightful thing came puffing and grinding past. For the first few days I could not feed in peace, but as I found that this terrible creature never came into the field or did me any harm, I began to disregard it, and very soon I cared as little about the passing of the train as the cows and the sheep did. Since then I have seen many horses, much alarmed and restive at the sight or sound of a steam engine, but thanks to my good master's care, I am as fearless at railway stations as in my own stable. So that's how he trained him not to get scared by the trains and the loud noises. Now, if anyone wants to break in a young horse, well, that is the way. My master often drove me in double harness with my mother because she was steady and could teach me how to go better than a strange horse. She told me the better I behaved, the better I should be treated, and that it was the wisest always to do my best to please my master. But, she said, there are a great many kinds of men. There are good, thoughtful men like our master, that any horse may be proud to serve, but there are also bad, cruel men who never ought to have a horse or a dog to call their own. Besides, there are a great many foolish men, vain, ignorant, and careless, who never trouble themselves to think. These spoil more horses than all, just for want of sense. They don't mean it, but they do it for all that. I hope you will fall into good hands, but a horse never knows who may buy him, or who may drive him. It is all a chance for us, but still I say, do your best, wherever it is, and keep up your good name. So there's a little pencil drawing. It looks like he's putting the cupper on underneath the tail there in that little drawing. The cupper. Now we kind of know at least a little bit what a cupper is. Crupper. C-R-U-P-P-E-R, the crupper. Okay, so that's the beginning of Black Beauty. Hope you guys are liking this story, and we will read some more of it tomorrow night. Love you so much. Sleep tight, girls. Love you.